You were born knowing everything that you need to know, and you have been taught how to meticulously and intricately talk yourself out of it for the benefit of some system, some construct, or the comfort of some other person, people, or thing. Take your time, slow down, get aware, do an intake on yourself, set an intention with the information that you have, go into your space of transformation with support, and then integrate it and put it all together the way you choose to, the way you know deep inside yourself is the most optimal and highly functional thing for you and all of the people, places, and things around you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Eons Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Alex Wolfe. And on the show, we like to have deep, intimate conversations with amazing people that are eons ahead. But what does it mean to be eons ahead? Well, it means they're ahead of their time and they see things other people don't see, and they're able to communicate these visions into the world, manifesting them into reality, making a positive impact for humanity. They're often doing things that other people are simply not doing, which I love. They're trailblazers, they're pioneers, they're conscious leaders. And our guest today is definitely one of those. His name is Tah Whitty. Tah Whitty is a renowned master intimacy and emotional navigation coach, celebrated for his groundbreaking work in trauma, shame, and shadow self-exploration. With 32 years of experience as a registered nurse, including 23 years spent in high-pressure emergency rooms, Tah has become a true expert in navigating trauma and drama. As the co-founder of the Condor Approach, the world's most comprehensive certification for psychedelic-informed integration coaches, Tah is at the forefront of transformative movement. Recently, he unveiled Emotion All, an extraordinary live event series and group coaching program dedicated to unlocking emotional navigation. Tah's wisdom extends beyond these accomplishments as he co-hosts the popular Psychedelic Coach podcast and is a sought-after speaker on global stages. People are drawn to Tah's epic hugs and his remarkable ability to be fully present, providing unwavering support as they overcome life's most formidable challenges, guiding them towards a path of ease, safety, connection, and fulfillment. He's definitely eons ahead. He's here today. Tah Whitty.
Hey, man, what's up? Glad to be here, fam.
Glad to have you here, fam. I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, me too, bro.
Yeah, it's been a while since we dropped in.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time that we met, at Third Eye Cacao Lounge, walked in and we got to strike up a conversation, my friend Josh and I, and you totally blew us away. It was one of those conversations in life that I think I'll just always remember. You were just so filled with wisdom, so humble, and really you created this aura around you that just like wisdom and magic was coming through. And there was definitely some major codes that day that were dropped that landed in my being and, changed my perspective and changed my outlook and set me on a new trajectory. So I'm very grateful how we met. And I'm glad we were able to stay in touch throughout that time. And I'm super happy to have you here today and dive in.
Thank you, fam. That was a great day for me. I walked in and y'all were talking about psychedelics and stuff. And I was like, hey, can I ask y'all a question? Can I jump in on this conversation? And you're all like, yeah, please. And so it was wonderful to be welcomed into that space. Mm-hmm. It was wonderful. Y'all's energy was real open. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for welcoming me into that space and for the continued volley that we've had for 2 years now?
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah, exactly.
It's bananas. Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
On that note, let's get right into it with psychedelics.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Let's go.
I know this is a big part of your life, and we chatted a little bit before the cameras were rolling and how you're making such an impact on coaching the coaches that go out and facilitate for people, right?
Yeah.
And they go out and make an impact, and it ripples out, and it goes bigger and bigger and bigger. And I love this. It's so important. It's such meaningful work and significant work these days. I'm wondering, how did that come to be? What was the initial entry into psychedelics?
Man, so that's a loaded one. And so as a registered nurse, I started nursing in 1992. I was 20 years old when I graduated from nursing school. And it was at the peak of crack in New York City and the peak of HIV in New York City. And things were really crazy. And drugs of any sort was off my radar, right? I couldn't even drink at that age. Now, I didn't have my first alcoholic beverage till I was 25 because I saw what alcohol did to people in the hospital. I saw what substances were doing to people in the hospital and what was going on with that. And so the system actually programmed me away from any kind of state-altering substances. I didn't smoke weed. The first time I tried weed, I was 36.
No.
Right? I'm going to be 53 this year, right? So the first time I tried weed, I was 36. And so I stayed away from any substances, but I kept getting hammered with all of this traumatic stuff, with all of these relationship issues, and I couldn't resolve what was going on in my own body. And I saw what was happening in the hospital system. And I saw the pushing of the flu shot for a long time, way before anything close to COVID. There started an initial push for flu shots. And I started to watch the system really push substances and medications that I knew people didn't really need, like statins for cholesterol, and the pushing of Advair, which is a medication that was for people who have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but they were giving it to people for asthma. And so like I was watching this stuff happen, and I was watching them come into the hospital and give us pens and free stethoscopes and stuff, and the doctor to get the doctors to prescribe stuff. So I started to become really disenfranchised with the industry. And I started to get into this place where I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to help people stay out of the hospital. And so I was very big into fitness. I got into personal training. I was looking to make an exit from nursing into personal training and get out. And it didn't really work. And I kept saying, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And from 2008 to 2018, there were 18 hospitals that closed down in New York City. And so I was watching a monopolization of the system. And it was like, you get healthcare the way we tell you you get healthcare, or you don't get healthcare. And so I started to get even more disenfranchised. And I just started to get bummed out with a lot of stuff that was going on. And I couldn't find my way out. And at a point, I was lifting a heavy patient with some of my colleagues, and they didn't pull. And I ended up herniating a disc in my back and fracturing L5. And I couldn't walk for 3 months. So I lost all my personal training clients. I couldn't work as a nurse. I was coaching people. I couldn't do that. I was completely done. The relationship that I was in crashed after 8 years. The person decided they wanted to be elsewhere at that very moment. And so everything kind of fell apart, and it left me a lot of space to actually be out of the hospital. And so when you tell your body, I learned when you tell your body to do something, it will do it. It will do it. So I was doing fitness challenges and weight loss challenges with Cole, who's now my wife. And she said to me when my back got injured, she said, look, I know what you need to do. You're a brilliant person who studied a lot. You know the human psyche really well, but you're not tying everything together. And I know something that might tie things together. And I was like, well, what's that? And she said, well, it's a ceremony. I was like, what's a ceremony? And she said, well, you go into this room with these people, and you sit in a circle, and you take these plants, and you go off into the psychedelic realm, and you find yourself. And I was like, oh, you want me to do some drugs with some hippie white people? And I was like, I'm not doing that shit. And so she was like, okay, suit yourself. And then she, things got, I just fell into this real deep pit. And she was like, hey man, there's a ceremony coming up, and I just want to invite you again. It's on me. I'll pay for it, whatever it is. Just come. And if you don't want to experience it, if you come into the place and you don't want to experience, you could just leave. And before you take anything, you could just leave. And I was like, all right, I'll do it for you. Right? She was like, whatever. And so I went and I sat, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And the facilitator came around and handed me this capsule. And I was like, what's this? And the facilitator was like, it's a heart opener. Right? It was SAS, cool. Right? Sassafras, and which is MDA. And I was like, well, what's a heart opener? And she's like, it's going to open your heart so that you'll feel empathetic, and you'll feel a lot of different things. And I was like, okay. And so I sat there, and I'm making all these jokes, and because I'm nervous as hell. And so it was the lightest dose. It was like a half a dose of sassafras, like 500 milligrams.
Uh-huh.
It was just the tiniest amount. And it put me on my ass.
Wow.
And I was curled up in a ball, and I kept saying, yuck, yuck, yuck. This is terrible. This is horrible. And everybody in the place was like, I've never seen anybody like this on a heart opener.
Wow.
And Cole she was getting into guilt spaces and like, what have I done? And I was just curled up in a ball for almost 2 hours, just saying, yuck, yuck, this is terrible. And Cole said to me, Tah, why don't you just let go? And I let go. And I didn't realize that I wasn't letting go before that. I didn't realize I was holding on. And the entire experience changed. Everything changed in that moment. And I had this huge realization that I was trying to control the way everybody in the room saw me. And I was trying to control how I felt. I was trying to control what people were thinking. I was trying to control what I was thinking. And so I let go. And in that moment, I realized that I was a control freak. And that a lot came to me around the stories that I had been telling other people. And I was lying about everything. I mean, I lied to everyone about everything. And I had all my lies in order. And so I would lie to you about something. I'd lie to the engineer about something. And then I'd lie to both of y'all about something else, right? And then I'd lie to a whole room of people about something. And so I had to keep track of all these lies. Wow. And before this went down, I had insomnia. Now, I had insomnia from when I was around 14.
Wow.
Okay. And I can tell you the whole story about that. But I had insomnia from when I was 14, and I just wrote it off as this is, no more than 4 hours of sleep at night. But I realized that my body was so vigilant to make sure that none of my lies ever got found out, that I was in this hyperdrive, sympathetic state all the time. And so my body was pushing, and there was an amount of body fat that I couldn't get off my body. No matter how much dieting or exercise, I couldn't get it off my body.
It's holding on.
My cortisol levels were probably ridiculous.
Right.
And so after that, I was like, I'm never gonna do this again. This is I'm never doing drugs again. And 2 weeks later, I had all these realizations and openings, and I didn't know what to do with it. There was so much information coming through me, and things were coming together so fast. So Cole took me to meet up with a facilitator, and he was like, you need to integrate. And I was like, well, what's that? I was like, what's that? He's like, well, let's talk about what's happening with you, and let's put the pieces together of all this information. And so we started putting the pieces together, and I was like, oh, that makes sense, and that makes sense, and that makes, and he wasn't telling me anything about myself other than what I put on the table for him to look at with me. Right. And so I started to learn, and I worked with people who were masters at integrating. Like the psychedelic experience was one thing, but the integration was that's where the money was at.
Right.
Putting everything together in the 3D realm, not the 5D. And so after that, somebody had invited me and Cole to another experience because of the energy between us as we were in the space. And so people started to invite us to journeys. And so the first 2 years after that, I journeyed every month. And I got asked to come and sit in spaces.
Different medicines every time, or?
It was different. It depends on the facilitator, but I worked with 2 facilitators. And I would go and help. So I started off with heart openers, and then I moved into a heart opener space with mushrooms, and then into mushrooms. And it changed everything, right? And so I got to go into these different expansive spaces and really be intentional about what I wanted to explore. So my first journey, I didn't know I was supposed to have an intention, or I didn't know having an intention was beneficial. And so I went in without an intention. I was like, the facilitator was like, what's your intention? I was like, to experience everything there is and everything there isn't. She was like, okay. Okay, pal, sure thing. I had no idea what I was in for. Right. And so that's what I got. Right. And so I was very specific with my intentions after that. And I moved from ranges of wanting to explore different things like fear to actually wanting to explore pleasure and enjoyment within myself. And so I got to explore all these different regions and all these different places within myself. And after a while, people would come and just drop down and sit in front of me. And for some reason, and I would be like, so how you doing? what's going on, what's coming up for you, what's happening with your experience. And they would tell me stuff, and I would ask them questions, and I would follow their nervous system and their bodies and what was going on with them to ask them questions, and it would bring things to the surface.
Right.
And so they would have these huge breakthroughs just sitting here talking to me. And I didn't know that this was happening. I was just going to experiences. I would make the soup. I would set up the room and all of this stuff because I wanted to really know what was going on. And I would shadow the facilitators. But people would drop in front of me, and this was happening over and over again. And so people started asking me and Cole to come to different experiences and just be there. And so we would go and we would be there, and people would drop down and sit with us, and we'd ask them questions and move them through stuff. And we were kind of helping them integrate in the experience, which was fascinating.
Wow.
And so people started asking us to do experiences. I was like, hey, listen, I'm not a facilitator. I don't know what I'm doing. And people were like, are you kidding me? And then one of the facilitators came and sat with me, and they were like, hey, listen, take a look around this room. What do you see? I was like, I see a bunch of people. And they were like, where are they looking? Oh, they're looking over here. And the facilitator was like, well, why do you think they're looking over here? And I was like, well, because you're here and you're the facilitator. They were like, no, they're looking over here because they're waiting for an opportunity to speak to you. And I was like, what? And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, you could charge a lot for what you do. And I was like, what? Being here, making the soup, And they were like, you completely have no idea of what you're bringing to the table here. And I had a lot of self-esteem issues at that point, and I would not hear anything positive about myself and take it in. And so that's something I had to work on and sit with. And after a while, me and Cole went out to Peru. We experienced ayahuasca and Wachuma, and we had all these openings. We got married on Machu Picchu Mountain.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, it was awesome. And after that, we got back and things started moving in New York, and people were like, please, can you just please do something with us? We want you to facilitate, not this person or those people. I want to sit with you.
What an honor.
And so we finally decided to have an experience for people with a select group of people. Like, I think it was 10 people. And I'm a nurse, so assessment is everything to me. So I would I give them a form, a long ass form. And then I'd have a conversation with them way before the experience so that their bodies would get attuned to my voice, so that if they were in a psychedelic experience, they already have my voice in their nervous system so that they know I'm a safe person, because safety is really important. And so these people had the most extraordinary breakthroughs that they'd ever had. They were like, man, I've been for all these ceremonies and I never had breakthroughs the way I've had here. I've never had connective situations the way I've had here. And then we helped them afterwards to integrate their experiences. And so that's where it all got started. And it's just been this progressive space of us moving into a space of supporting people in facilitation, which is to make your experience flow, to make your experience easier, not to fix you or anything or remedy anything. And so we moved into that space of facilitation for a while, and we facilitated for years and just watched people have these amazing breakthroughs. And we refined our process of intake, which the front end work is always the most important work, is the front end work, and then into the psychedelic experience opens things up, and then integration is where you tie it all together. It's just a wonderful process.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing the whole story. I love it.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me, Tah, that your gift, or one of your gifts, was really allowing people to feel safe in this space, and the assessment was part of that. Touching base with them, letting them hear your voice and where you're coming from. And then as you're there, it sounds like they really felt safe with you, and safety obviously is such a huge component of that. What do you think it is about that, the safety that makes it so valuable?
Yeah, well, safety is the poverty line, right? For everything human, it's the poverty line. We have three things that drive all of our emotions: safety, connection, and fulfillment. These are the echelons. So you have safety, which is the bedrock. If you're not safe, your emotions are going to tell you to get safe, and they'll constantly tell you to get safe until you get safe, right? Safety being freedom from hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, and pain.
Wow.
Okay? And so when you're free from those things, then you can move into connection with yourself, connection with the environment, connection with other people. Once you're connected, then you move into the luxury space, which is fulfillment, right? And so safety is the bedrock. If a person is not safe in a psychedelic experience, if they're not as optimally safe as they possibly can be. Now, I can't make another person safe. I can provide an environment and a situation and dynamics for a person to keep themselves safe in sovereignty. And so in that space, if a person can't feel safe, the body will pull them out of the experience. Or the body will put limiters or brakes on the experience until the body feels safe enough to expand out into connection with the psychedelic, right? With the substance, with the food, with whatever it is. Then when the body can connect with that, it can fulfill a process. Does that make sense?
It does make
sense.
sense.
So when I was working in a hospital, I saw nothing but unsafe people who were unsafe all the time. I was unsafe. And I'm working there to support people who are consistently feeling unsafe. And so they couldn't connect and they couldn't be fulfilled in their lives. And so that's one of the things that was the most important thing for me, was to provide an environment for human beings to have where they could actually just relax into it, and their bodies knew that there was not going to be any threat. Their minds, their unconscious mind knew that I wasn't trying to dig in their pockets and take their stuff. The female bodies and the male bodies both knew that I was not trying to have sex with them or court them or anything like that. So they didn't have to worry about that, right? And so when they can not worry about that, the body opens up to actually interact with the psychedelic substance differently, because there's no extra immune response going on. There's no extra sympathetic response going on other than what the person needs to process. So that safety is the bedrock.
Gotcha. Let's say, one of the viewers or someone they're in a space in their life where they're feeling unsafe. Maybe they're wounded, or they're going through some sort of trauma that they haven't really addressed yet, or they're just in this feeling of unsafe. Could be any one of those. Was it 7 things that you mentioned?
Yeah.
7 things.
Yeah, I call them the 7 attributes of violence.
7 attributes of violence, right. So there's something happened, some sort of trauma happened, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, financial even, it sounds like, and they're feeling unsafe. What is the process for them to start feeling safe again? And I know this is a loaded question. There's a lot there, but try to break it down and
yeah, the first thing is to be safe, to be able to be allowed to feel unsafe. Most people are trying to put brakes on feeling unsafe. If your system is telling you that something is not safe, then let's find out what your system is looking to protect. Okay? And this is where having people understand those 7 attributes is very important. Are you feeling hurt? Is there any harm that you're concerned about? Is there any loss happening in your life? Are you afraid that if you go into this experience, you'll lose something? Many times people are afraid to do psychedelics because they'll lose their identity of who they are or how they identify with their family. So they may move to something else. So there's a fright in the background of loss, okay? And then that drives a grief mechanism. So you see how that works? And so deficit, which could be a person is worried that if something happens and they get found out and they get locked up, they may lose their kids. Like all of these things happen. And then injury, what if I fall? What if something happens? And then what if I die, right? What if a part of my ego dies? People go to psychedelic experiences and hear about ego deaths. And the ego, when it hears about that, gets threatened, right? And in pain, will I be in pain in this space? And so this is where before any experience, to be able to address these things and see what comes up and kind of stir the pot so that the gook that's at the bottom of the pot, or the meat, the potatoes that are sitting at the bottom, gets to come up and you can ladle it out of there. So that safety aspect is very important. So if a person doesn't feel safe, cool, let's talk about the safety. Let's not push it out of the way. Let's not try to fix it. It is a mechanism. It is a response. It is a trauma response. Okay. And so whenever something comes online, if there's a threat of hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, pain, your trauma mechanism comes online to protect you from that, or to prepare you for injury, to prepare you to start healing, or to prepare you to die in some way, form, or another. And so what are these things? And as a facilitator, if I know these things, when they come online during your experience, I may be able to facilitate you moving through them. Hey, check, and you've been calling John, just checking in. how's your relationship with John going right now? What would you want that to be like? And just asking questions to get the person to level off, to actually see where they are, to experience where they are, and to make adjustments to that if they so choose. And so this is why the front end work is tremendously important. It's knowing where a person does not feel safe. On my intake form, when I'm working with a client, my intake form has things like, what's your favorite color? What's your least favorite color? What color do you absolutely hate? And I want to make sure that color is not in the room, right? And talk about, okay, is there an anchor to that color? Oh yeah, well, when I was a kid, this guy with a red shirt came and hit me with a baseball bat. Okay, makes plenty of sense.
Yeah.
And so when you stir the pot and you get all this stuff up to the surface so that a person can actually see where they are, it changes the dynamic. And then you give them an opportunity to make empowered choices around that. And when you pair an expanded, very neuroplastic space with that empowerment to change things, and a facilitator who's there to not to fix anything, to support you in that dynamic, it changes the ball game.
Wow. It's fascinating. I'm going to share an experience that I had in a psychedelic ceremony, and I'd love to hear your reflection on what this might mean or be, especially when it regards to safety. So I remember being in the psychedelic space, and it was like my body was tuned out, like shut down. I was very deep in thought, and I was analyzing things that I do in my life and situations and things that I attract into myself. And in this time, it felt like my body was completely shut down. And then one of the facilitators came over and started singing over me and praying over me, and my body lit up like, honestly, like never before. Like I had just like accessed a whole bunch of energy that I had never really, and I've never felt so visceral in my body before. But for me, it was like some sort of shift from feeling unsafe whenever I was thinking about, to now I felt safe enough that this energy was flowing through my body. Have you ever had any experiences with this when in a facilitator?
Yeah. I mean, I've had plenty of experiences where another person who is confident in their space can actually bring the energy to another person and support them in creating safety for themselves. And so we are very empathetic beings as humans. And when you're in psychedelics, you open up lots of different energy channels. Okay, there's so many different channels that open up that are empathetic channels that can synchronize with other channels. And so when you synchronize with other channels, you can pick up on somebody else's situation. I've been in psychedelic experiences, particularly with Cole, because her energetic patterns open up really, really wide, where she'll start feeling nauseous and her stomach, she's like, I don't understand what's going on. And then there's a person over in the corner of the room that's going through some stuff, that's releasing something from their midsection.
Right.
And so these spaces can open up for people. So when I don't know what was when you were feeling like, what were you, how do you describe your body was before?
It felt like it was shut down.
It was shut down. When you say shut down, what does that mean?
Like it was, I guess, just in comparison to when it came back online. Like when it came back online, it felt like almost like I had superpowers. Like it was like, man, if my body felt like this all the time, this would be incredible. But it was the flip mode to that was it felt very dull and very weak and not lively. Like it was operating on like 10 or 15%. And then when it came online, it was 115%. It was just full on, and it had like a hard time containing all that energy that come in my body. And that was what it felt like.
Was the shutdown unpleasant?
Only when I realized that I had been living in this shutdown mode, and this was like a regular scenario. I was like, man, I've been operating from this weak, low energy space of feeling unsafe. And then it was like, this is what's available if I just get out of my own way, if I get out of this situation.
Right. So, I mean, it can be a myriad of different things. I would have loved to be there because I would have asked a whole bunch of questions. But, it could be a myriad of things that are going on in a person's body, in a person's psyche that can, we have what we call fight or flight, which is the extreme end of the sympathetic space. And then when you move from there, you spill over into what we would call a freeze space, or a flood space, right? Where you get emotionally flooded. And then freeze, which is a parasympathetic space where we prepare to die.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so if there's a preparation to die, there's a push into your parasympathetic space where the body is like, this is where animals play dead and that type of stuff, where they will absolutely freeze.
Right.
And so we have waking moments in our lives, and sometimes people are in a waking freeze state all the time, and it's a dissociative space. And so if that could be a part of it, if there's such a fright that's going on in your life, it can push you into a space where you are habitually dissociating. Right? And you may not even realize it. And that's part of dissociation. I didn't even know I was in a space. That's something that happened with me a lot, is I would dissociate into spaces and completely, where was I?
Yeah.
You know? And so, and these are also low energy spaces for my body, but the body goes into a reserve, right? So it goes into to reserve whatever resources it has, or it goes into a complete shutdown and prepares to die.
Wow.
So that's, I mean, I don't know. That's what it sounds like it could be. But I know that when a person gets into an extreme unsafe space, we go into fight or flight. If fighting something off or running and hiding from something doesn't do the job, then we can go into a flooded space, and then we can go into a despair space. And that despair space is where we freeze and prepare for death. And we could be in a state that there are people that I know that are always preparing to die all the time. And it's a very hard place when we create a habitual body around that. There are hormones that we push out that are associated with that, and that can cause a lot of unease that moves into dis-ease, that moves into illness, that moves into death.
When you say prepared to die, is it on a egoic level or like actual physical level? Both, yeah.
Both. When the ego is preparing to die, the body is going to follow.
Right.
It's an unconscious pattern where the body is going to prepare to die. This is why when people are like, yeah, I want to go experience an ego death, I'm like, be careful with what you're doing with your ego death situation with psychedelics. Stop going to kill your ego because your ego lives within you and it has no other body other than the one you're walking in. And so when you use that language around your ego, something may be afraid and not safe all the time in the background because it's been keeping you safe or alive or keeping you however it's been keeping you. And when you threaten to kill it, it has no way to enact itself other than through the physical body. And so when the physical body is preparing all the time for an onslaught, you're going to get a lot of really weird stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of really weird stuff in ceremony, have you ever heard of or seen or believe in the possibility of unlocking like superpowers or like abilities or anything like that when I say that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I had a ceremony that I was in. I used to wear glasses. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know.
I used to wear
that.
glasses all the time.
Like for seeing?
Yeah.
Wow.
I used to wear glasses all the time. And when I had a ceremony where I kept having this phrase come up, and I was to say it, and it wasn't, I wasn't told this in any kind of language, but there was like a feeling, a notion that I had to scream it at the top of my lungs over and over again.
Wow.
And it's, my name is Tah, and I will not be pacified. And I called the facilitator. She's walking around and she's like, hey, what's going on? I was like, hey, I need some help with something. And I need you to gather all the men that you can gather that are not, in any kind of process or anything, and have them come in here around me, right? Because I'm terrified, right? And I need to scream something out loud. And so they got all the guys and they came and they surrounded me. And I screamed this at the top of my lungs. My name is Tah, and I will not be pacified. And I could feel every part of my body contract. And then I said it again and again and again. And then they all dogpiled me. Wow. And they jumped on top of me, and I said it one last time, and my body just swole up. And after that, I didn't need glasses anymore.
Wow.
All right. And I haven't worn glasses. And then when I came to Texas, I passed my driver's license test with no glasses.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like I was in my 40s when that happened.
Yeah.
And so I've seen things like that happen on multiple occasions with different people, where they've had people doing handstands and just all this weird, crazy stuff that they were never able to do before that they unlocked.
Yeah.
So, I've seen I've seen stuff like that.
Same here.
And I've experienced stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. And it's remarkable. And I know it's should be approached with reverence. It's not a game. It's not a joke. But I'm wondering, what do you think is going on in those situations?
Well, have you ever read The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton?
I have years ago, yeah.
Great book.
Yeah.
And so belief is a very interesting dynamic. And so there's a contrast. In Emotional, I teach about this. And there's a contrast between knowledge and belief.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge is inherent. It's intuitive. It's there all the time. And it's always evolving and mutating into different spaces. Belief takes knowledge from a period of time, puts it in a box, and keeps it confined there. I believe this will happen because it happened then. I believe this will happen again in the future because it happened then. And so it's bypassing the moment of now, and it's keeping the knowledge confined. Okay? And so when we confine that, we train the body around a belief structure. I believe I am Tah. And so this is what Tah does. Tah acts this way, Tah moves this way, Tah lives this way. And so my body frames itself around that belief structure. Now, if I live in knowledge, my body is constantly changing to mutate to the moment of now knowledge. It's not tied to a belief. It's constantly evolving into a different space.
Wow.
And so when a person is able to ride the knowledge space. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with belief. Belief is very convenient. Look at what we've built in our world. It's a convenient space. It's a construct, okay? And when you can let go of your construct, the body has to allow itself to change and mutate in real time. And so people ask me all the time, how do you get your body like that? How do you, I'm being in real time. I'm moving in real time and I'm adjusting to things in real time. That's what I was telling you. I'm a process person. And so my body is taking the form of process. And as I let go of my old beliefs about who I am, my body lets go of the need to be structured the way it was years ago for those purposes. When I used to lie a lot, my body had to store body fat because it was always on a full alert, right? And so I don't have to do that anymore. So my body has changed into something different. And it's not just about fitness or movement or anything like that. That all can be a place of how your body adjusts as well. But the belief structures that we put in who we are. I believe I am a man. Men do this. Straight men do this. Straight black men do this. Straight black men who believe that they don't have white, who are light skinned like me and believe they don't have, we act this way. And so this is a belief structure that I've embedded into an identity that I've embedded into this body. And so when people let go, right, when we get into psychedelic experiences and the default mode network gets to be disabled for a little while, we can reprogram ourselves if we so choose, right? And then move forward with the reprogramming of the nervous system in the body to create a new type of body that is knowledge-based, not belief-based.
Wow. I love that. Very well said.
Thank you.
It's like opening the box up that those beliefs are confined within and just taking the limits off the beliefs. And now there's so much more possibilities. It's open to the realm of possibilities. How does one shift from believing to knowing? Is it a feeling? Is there signs that someone could pay attention to, or?
Well, the first thing is to know that you are in a belief space, right? So awareness, with all the work that I do with anything, with anybody and psychedelics and coaching or whatever, it's awareness. Are you aware of your behavior patterns? Are you aware of what's driving your behavior patterns? Because if we have a behavior that's put on autopilot, there's usually a belief structure that supports that. And so we go down and we find out what the belief structure is and we talk to the belief structure. Is it relevant anymore? It's like I've had to do work with some female bodies around male bodies, and there's a belief structure that's been built into some of these bodies that all male bodies are a threat because of something that happened when they were 5 or 10, right? Or 15, whatever. And so the idea around that belief structure stops them from getting into deeply meaningful relationships with male bodies because of the belief structure. And now I'm not saying that the belief structure was wrong, okay? It's still a belief structure. And if it's getting in the way of you interacting the way you say you want to interact, then we have to look at the belief structure. And this is why people will go into psychedelic experiences and the belief structure will come up to be challenged and people don't know what to do with it because they haven't done the front end work. This is why doing front end work is very important from my vantage point. And we have an opportunity to do that. Particularly in this country and in Europe, we have an advantage of being able to have a luxury of doing this before we get into psychedelic experiences. We have this is a form of technology that we have to be able to assess ourselves, and it's a privilege. And so to be able to use that privilege to lean in and to stir the pot and bring these things to the surface, have awareness of it, then you can make those active changes. And if you have another person, a facilitator, a guide to be like, hey, listen, I'm swinging you back to your intention. Is this still where you want to be? Is this something that you're in a position to talk about? And I'm not talking about when they're in the deepest state of their journey. I'm talking about as they're getting before drop in and after they're coming out of the deepest parts. Do you want to swing back into that? Do we want to reinforce things? Can you see the belief structure? Can you see how it's affecting all the areas of your life? Do you want it to continue to affect these areas? And if so, okay, we'll leave it there. And if you don't want it, what's the plan? And then we integrate that plan.
Integrate the plan. Very cool. Tom, where did you get the name for the condor?
Actually, that came from Cole.
Oh, cool.
Cole is a huge fan of South America, and the South American bird, the condor, that's the bird down there.
Yeah.
And Cole has had a lot of really huge openings around things, and Cole had the Condor Approach itself, the whole program that we have and the methodology that we have. Cole kept having dreams of having a 10-gram B+ mushroom experience in a particular space.
What do you mean B+?
B+ strain. It's a
strain.
It's a
B+.
strain of mushroom.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a species. B+ mushrooms with her altar set up a very particular way, and she kept having this dream. And she had it twice, and then she had it a third time, and I was like, are you gonna do it? She's like, I was like, do you want me to sit the trip for you? And she was like, yeah. And so she went in, and she went in, and I sat there, and it was I've never seen anybody in a mushroom space for so long.
Wow.
It was 12 hours. She was in mushroom for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And the range of stuff that she went through, it was fascinating to witness. And she came back with very clear instructions that we are to stop facilitating experiences, and we are to support people in learning how to facilitate, navigate, and all of this stuff. And she said it has something to do with the condor. And I was like, okay. And so, we sat down and we talked about the condor, and she was like, the condor method, the condor this. And I was like, well, it sounds like it's an approach. And it sounds like the condor is approaching. So what about the Condor Approach? And that's where the condor came from. And the condor is a magnificent bird. It's the largest flying bird. Has a wingspan of like 11 feet or some crazy. It can get as big as 11 feet. They fly at 19,000 feet in the sky. 19,000 feet.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's high.
And they're heavy.
Yeah.
And so they have to really flap hard to get up there, and they stay up there for long periods of time, and they can see storms coming from far away. They have no natural predator. None. It's the only bird that has no natural predators.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's a magnificent bird, and it comes down to the earth to clean things up. It doesn't kill anything. It feeds off of carrions, right? Things that are dead already.
Oh, cool.
And so it's a cleanup bird. It's a form of vulture.
Wow.
And so the Condor Approach is here. We want people to have a bird's eye view, to be able to see everything around them, to be able to see when the storms are coming, to be able to see where their past things were, and to be able to ride through things, and to be able to come down to earth to help clean things up, to clean up the dead and dying systems, and to transmute it into our bodies, to take it and make it something that's worthwhile. And to keep it moving and just keep repeating the process, but having that view. And everything that we do, everything that we've created around the Condor Approach has this bird's eye view.
I love that. It's really having the bird's eye view, seeing the vision, of where this timeline can go if we do the work and we come down here and we clean. We don't kill, like the Condor doesn't kill anything. It cleans. And it's like thinking with the end in mind, and moving towards that and being the process, like you said. And then by being the process, by embodying that, it becomes in this new earth that you're talking about, which is an honor to be a part of that, to really embody that, to bring it in as a frequency holder.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome to be a part of this. Sometimes I have to snap myself back into reality that I'm actually doing this.
Yeah.
And sometimes my old stuff comes online, my old self-doubt stuff. Like there are still programs running in the background, especially when I get around my blood relatives. The old programs were pulling me back. So I've been doing a lot of shadow work recently, a lot of shadow work. And so it's been really great. And once I have an opening space, I go into a very intentional journey, and I'll do some deep work around that, and then I'll integrate for 6 months, 8 months around that, and just keep going. Just keep going. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm gonna be 53 this year, and so
you look fantastic, by the way.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting to see myself in the mirror every day and to see the things that are happening. This morning, it was crazy. So. Part of the shadow work things, like I used to have sex with a lot of different people. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've had sex with in my life, right? And so there are people that I've had sexual encounters with, and I mostly women, right? I mean, I'm like I said, I'm honest about things. There have been some things with men in the past because of some questionable things I had with myself in the past, but. I've been in relationships and situations with women where I was not, from my vantage point, a savory person. Like it was a sex and then I just vanished. And there was a person that I called up that I kept getting a ping to reach out to, who's always liking my stuff on Facebook and saying, hey, and all of this. And I hit her up and I was like, hey, listen, I want to talk to you. Because she was actually what I would call a peak experience person. The way I met her it was a very peak experience for me. And we never had anything sour, but the way I walked away from the situation, I didn't favor myself in that space. And so I hit her up and I was like, hey, I wanted to, offer an opportunity if you have anything you want to share, any kind of emotions or anger or whatever it is. And she was actually like, no, I actually don't have anything terrible to say about it. I really enjoyed our time together and so on. And I felt this huge release in my body. Like I didn't realize how much guilt I was holding over that one interaction, which wasn't a sour situation, but I had been holding guilt about it. And so my body released and my face, like later in the day, I kept feeling this pressure on my head over here. And I was like, man, I don't know what this is. I was out in the sun a little yesterday, but I'm always out in the sun. And I woke up this morning, I went in the mirror and I got slashed when I was in college. I got slashed here and back here.
Wow.
And I asked my wife, I said, hey, can you tell me if you see the scar on my head? And she was like, no. So like my scar has faded.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing things like my body heals really quickly right now. And as I let go of these past dynamics, and like I've been rolling through my Rolodex, my phone, I call it a Rolodex, and just picking things and seeing names of people that I've interacted with, and I've been calling them, and I've been offering opportunities for people to speak their truth. And some of it has been like, hey man, F you, Oh,
wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, thank you. And they're like, thank you.
Yeah.
And I also reached out to people that have been in spaces to be abusive in this direction, have done abusive things, and to be able to offer them an opportunity to speak their truth around it, or to, even if they wanted to apologize. I'm not interested in somebody being sorry. I want people to be able to just express what they need to express. My body has been releasing so many things, man. And if I didn't have my first psychedelic experience, I don't feel like I'd be here.
Right.
And this has been allowing me to open things up. And so when people have psychedelic experiences and they go back after and they integrate. Like, it's like, man, I don't know why this person keeps showing up in my journey. Did you call them? Did you call them? Did you reach out to them? Did you see what they're doing? Have you had an opportunity to come to some semblance of peace within yourself, stepping outside of the drama triangle, right? No victim, no villain, no victor, right? No hero. Step outside, bird's eye view, look down at it, get intimate with all the parts and let go. And the body releases and changes into something that's process for now oriented, not past oriented.
Yeah. Isn't it so wild how everything is stored in the body?
It is.
It's such like an intelligent system that's going on.
It is. And it doesn't have to hold on to it if it doesn't need to, you know, and when you can let go of these things. But when we get programmed around traumatic circumstances, around circumstances that are a threat, the trauma response becomes the mainstay dynamic. And we're not designed to have trauma chemicals pumping through our bodies all the time. They're designed to be in the glands. And then when we need it, the body releases it for the moment. But when we have the body releasing traumatic preparation situations all the time, it becomes caustic for the body, and the body mutates, and the body breaks down, and it becomes an issue. And then we have weird things and crystals in our joints, and you know, and all of these things that aren't designed to be there. Right. You know, and then on top of that, we have really terrible eating patterns and processed foods and manipulated waters, and then water with things like death on the bottle. like what are we telling our water to do? Right. Like, so there's all sorts of stuff.
There's all sorts of stuff against us to try to keep us in these fight or flight and survival and bring our bodies to, you know, to disease, like you said. Right?
Well, with good reason. When we are diseased, when we are in these positions, we need help. And if we need help, we're easily controllable. And when we're easily controllable, the people that have issues around power, who don't feel they have enough power, will use that as an in to control as many people as possible. And that's where these dynamics come from my vantage point. Just the studying that I've done is that people who yearn for power, who have to have power, have been feeling powerless their entire lives. And they will seek any opportunity to keep control of things. And this has been built into families. You know, this is where we have families, we have cartel families, we have governmental families, we have all these different families that these dynamics of trauma and fright have been built into them, so they are power hungry because they feel powerless inside themselves. And when people have their experiences with Aya and they come back like, oh my God, what have I been doing all my life? Why have I been trying to keep all these people subdued and letting go? I've had an opportunity to work with some really amazing people who've worked with really big companies who run huge companies that are making a lot of money, that after they've had Aya or after they've gone into deep mushroom experience, I'm talking about like 8-10 grams of mushrooms, they come back with these realizations of the powerlessness that they'd been feeling their whole lives that they weren't aware of. And this is why I'm saying awareness is the number one thing. That front end work. What have you been doing? What's been happening with you? Stir the pot, bring this up, timelining things. What happened when you were a kid, when you scraped your knee, when you know, on my intake form, it's like, tell me about every injury that you've had, every scar on your body, right? And then as we go through these things, it's like, what happened with this scar, right? When you had this scar, did you go to the hospital? Yeah, right. How many times have you been in the hospital? Well, I was in the hospital when I was 10. Were your parents there? No, my parents never came, and I felt abandoned. Boom, right? We have something, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I felt abandoned since then. And so when you stir the pot and you bring this up, a person, if they're foundational core people, which are the parents for the most part, with most people, are not safe, it's not just the parents that are not safe, but if you have a male that's not safe as a father, a female that's not safe as a mother, and then you see all the other people representing male and female bodies, you don't feel safe around them. You don't know why. You have to have power. So you build a business that takes from other people, right? And so we have these dynamics. You get into government and you use the government to take power from other people, right? And so these are where these dynamics, from my vantage point, where these things come from. And so when people can unhinge themselves from these dynamics, it changes everything, man.
Wow.
Everything. And that's the power as a nurse, as a person who's very deeply rooted in scientific methodologies and stuff. I have never seen anything as powerful as psychedelics. Nothing. Nothing. And then after that, adaptogens. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's remarkable.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Mushrooms for the win.
Yeah.
Of all sorts.
I love it. I love
for the
it.
win, man.
Yes.
For the win. And it's, I feel like we're in a time where people are becoming more and more aware of this. You know, the psychedelic stock index is growing. I'm sure you're watching what's going on psychedelicinvest.com. Like the market is almost 5 billion right now.
Wow.
And it's not even legal in most places.
Yeah.
You know, so we're on a cusp of something really awesome. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing with Eons.
Thank you.
Man.
Thanks, fam.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you. It's mushrooms have changed my life. They continue to change my life. I still, like I mentioned earlier before we started rolling, I continue to go in and ask the mushrooms, what do you need me to work on? What do I need to do to be the guy to bring this to the world? You know, and I don't know if you know this, but I'm working on a legal psychedelic microdose with a protocol. Doesn't contain psilocybin, contains another active ingredient called muscimol. Muscimol is legal in 49 states, and it does a few different things. One is it works on deprogramming the user, and it starts to show them any negative patterns they have in their life and bad habits and this kind of thing, and it allows them to gently unwind them on their own. It creates peace around their mind and their heart, so there's a space where they could say, hey, wow, I'm emotionally eating, or I eat when I'm bored, or I eat when I'm upset, and this kind of stuff. And maybe I should stop doing that. And it's really cool to deprogram, and it's working on the subconscious mind, which is really cool. So yeah, I hope and I pray and I believe that the world is ready for this. You know, I don't know if they're ready for legal psychedelics or not, but I believe with responsibility and with the right intention, we could roll this out and, you know, start to give people more peace so that they can make more optimal decisions.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, thanks for the work you're doing, man.
Yeah. Thank you. We're doing our best, you know, but it's interesting to see in this process of bringing out the legal psychedelic microdose, my own transformation journey that's happening. It's like these little or sometimes big obstacles get in the way, and who I have to become to get through these obstacles has been really interesting. It's like the mushrooms won't allow me to bring them to the market until I unlock these certain things in myself, you know, which has been really, really cool. They're so intelligent. So it's quite the journey. So I don't know when they're going to come out. They were supposed to come out like a month ago, but some big things came up. I'm working through these things, and who I'm becoming in the process has been so worth it all. So it's really fascinating.
So good.
Yeah.
So good, man. Oh, so good. You got to come to Condor and talk to the Condors about it.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it could be very helpful in the integration process as well, once you get more familiar with it as well.
Yeah. You know, it's really a wonderful place to have something legal for people to work with. You know, some of the Condors work with Kana.
Oh yeah.
Because Kana is a legal space. Legal. Yeah. It's a really wonderful place that is a natural SSRI type of dynamic without all the processing, and it's really wonderful. And I feel like the Condors would really be able to lean into what you're doing.
Cool.
Yeah, and they have the integration process down. So,
nice. Fantastic.
So having all that in as another resource. We have people that do all sorts of things. You know, we have people that work in snake venom.
Wow.
Yeah. We have people that work in Reiki. We have people that work in Reiki and mushrooms.
Cool.
People that work in massage therapy and mushrooms, like all these different mixes of stuff. People that we have someone that has a retreat center down in Ecuador and works in Aya. Like we have all sorts of different people, and to have tools like this is wonderful. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the reflection. It's my honor. You know, this is what I'm totally called to do, and this is what gets me out of bed in the morning really excited and goes to bed at night with peace. So it's been quite the journey. There was something that came up to me intuitively when you're talking, and I'm really curious. I'm going to say a couple words, and I'd like you to finish the sentence with whatever comes through.
Sure.
Life is
The best thing possible.
nice. Love it. Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, perfect answer. Tah, you've shared so many codes here today. You know, like codes to me is like gems of wisdom. And like I said, when we first met a couple years ago, you dropped a couple codes on me that really changed my mind. And with a new mind, I had a new perspective, and I had a new outlook on life. I'm so grateful. And you shared many codes here today. But if there's one other code that's impacted your life deeply that you'd like to share with the audience, you know, that could make an impact, what is that code?
That code would be, you were born knowing everything that you need to know. And you have been taught how to meticulously and intricately talk yourself out of it for the benefit of some system, some construct, or the comfort of some other person, people, or thing. Take your time, slow down, get aware, do an intake on yourself, set an intention with the information that you have, go into your space of transformation with support, and then integrate it and put it all together the way you choose to, the way you know deep inside yourself is the most optimal and highly functional thing for you and all of the people, places, and things around you.
Thank you, fam. That's amazing. It's all there, you know, it's all inside us right from the beginning. And it's like we're remembering, relearning how to come back to ourselves.
It's what I teach all my people, man. This is where they say you're this spirit having a human experience, or whatever people say. And the thing is, when you look at your God self, your source self, you know everything that you need to know. But we've been taught how to keep ourselves small, how to keep ourselves limited, how to believe. And every time there's a belief, there's a doubt attached to a belief. I believe I am something, so I may not.
Yeah.
I might not. But when I know I am something, there's no doubt. There's no belief. I just know. Belief will talk you out of it.
Yeah.
So will doubt. And other people are full of belief and doubt. I do my best to stay in my knowing.
Boom. So powerful. So good. There's one other question that I'm really curious that I want to ask you.
Hey, you got me, man. I'm here for it. Let's go.
I love it. Tah, you've traveled, you've met all kinds of people over the years, from, being a nurse in the ER and New York City and here in Austin and everywhere in between. I'm wondering if you could learn from one Gnostic master over the years, and it could be someone that you haven't even met, somebody historical, somebody dead or alive. If you could learn from one person and get all their codes, who would that person be?
Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, cool.
Anthony Bourdain was on my list, my bucket list of people to meet. Man, I'm feeling emotional right now.
Oh, cool.
There's something about this guy and the wisdom that he had traveling around the world, meeting people and sitting with them over food and really learning about people. I feel like Anthony Bourdain had some things that the world really needed to hear. And his life being cut short, or cut to where it is, I can't say cut short, everything happens in order. That is a person who I would have loved to have codes from. And he's always, I've been asked this question before, and he's always my go-to person, Anthony Bourdain. And I have lots of other people that I'd love to sit with, but man, I'd love to have a conversation with that guy.
Yeah, one of the ultimate dinner guests there for sure. And he just really embodied really living, and just really being in it. Whatever situation that he was in, he was really in it. And I really admire that. He was just living it full on.
Yeah, Parts Unknown, man. That was, I'm not a big TV person, but Parts Unknown is something that Cole put me onto, and I just fell in love with that, and I
Cool.
just started to look into what he was doing,
Mm-hmm.
and so his essence is always with me.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Parts Unknown. I'm going to check that out.
yeah.
Tah, it's been such a pleasure diving in with you today. So many codes, so much wisdom, so much love.
Thank you, fam.
Such a beautiful human being.
Thank you, fam.
Where can people touch base with you? Where can they get to know you?
People can get to know me, can find me on my website, which is the Condor Approach, condorapproach.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a host of references and free resources. I invite you to go there and get our free audio course.
Cool.
We have a free integration audio course. Go download it,
Cool.
use it. We have all sorts of wonderful things. You can find me on Instagram at the Condor Approach, the THE Condor Approach, and at Tah Whitty, TAHFREE. Yeah. So, and if you want to do a little gift for your listeners for the Condor Approach, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Amazing.
For your listeners, anybody that wants to come to the Condor Approach 3-day, we'll take $100 off of it.
Cool.
For anybody.
Wonderful.
Use the code EONS,
Yeah,
EONS.
perfect. Yeah, we'll set it up.
Yeah, EONS, and we'll do that. But yeah, the Condor Approach is the place to find me, condorapproach.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, fam. It's been an absolute pleasure. Keith, thank you for all the work that you're doing in the world. It's truly remarkable.
Thank you.
And just keep being you.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.